Welcome to Better Odds Sports Betting. Here's our hosts, Kev O'Neill and Kyle Hunter.
Welcome back, everybody, to Better Odds Sports Betting. Happy to be back. The Sweet 16 is here. Kev O'Neill joins me. I'm Kyle Hunter. The crew is back again here, Kiev. We're ready for another week. The NCAA tournament delivers every single year, and it did again this weekend. There's always some great drama. I hope you enjoyed the games as much as I did. How are you doing, Kiev?
I did. I'm doing fantastic. I had a pretty good week last week. I was really happy about that. A lot of people involved in the tournament. A lot of people invest in the tournament, and it felt good to do that. But the games were just amazing. Some of the St. Peters game was just, I'm still thinking about that game against Kentucky. Just crazy. Lots of madness. Can't say the same for our teams, Kyle, but you know what? We made it to 32, and you're wearing the hat of the team that took you out, which I find ironic. But you know what? It's Villanova. It's like, at least you have an excuse. Unfortunately for my Badgers, we lost to a team that we should have beat. Going 1 for 20 from 3 for the whole game is never. You're not going to beat anybody doing that.
Oh, man, Kiev, I was rooting for the Badgers in that game. I wanted the Big Ten, and I just kept thinking some of those shots were just so ugly. Some of the guys that usually put up good shots, the Badgers just were really off that game, and obviously Davis was less than 100%. It's hard to tell whether that was more about Iowa State's defense actually being decent or if it was, to me, Wisconsin really just played poorly, and they picked a bad time to play their worst game of the season, obviously.
But I'll give Iowa State some credit that they did step up their defense both times, but LSU was also awful. And, the eye test told me, like, we are missing shots that we should make. It's not their defense doing this, which makes me not like them, Iowa State, a whole lot this game, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. St. Peter's probably the story of the tournament so far. I mean, what a run for them. Usually, a lot of times you see that big upset, and then it's hard for that team to back it up in the next game. Impressive showing for them there, beating Murray State, a quality team, not a fluke team there. So St. Peter's, Shaheen Holloway, really good job with that team. I'm pretty sure he's going to be getting a new job here really soon with the Seton Hall job opening up. I think they're just kind of holding off. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but any other key takeaways from the weekend for you, Kiev?
I would say that obviously the SEC turned out to be overrated, and so did the Big Ten. The ACC kind of, what I was thinking maybe was underrated. And what's funny is I made mention of that the last couple shows we did. I said, remember last year, everyone was down in the Pac-12 and everyone was high in the Big Ten. It turned out to be opposite. It cost a lot of people money. Well, I was like, watch out for the ACC here. And I was happy to say that because it actually worked, and they paid a lot of bills this weekend, but won a lot of money, cashed a lot of tickets. Notre Dame, fantastic. And, they cashed a lot of tickets. Even though they lost that last game, they covered. Miami was massively impressive. Auburn just completely laid an egg. The Big 12 is kind of what we thought they were, if you want to be Denny Green. But at the same time, we thought they were good, and they've proven good. They've proven fantastic. And, Texas Tech and Kansas holding strong, and they still have Iowa State in there too. So you got to give props to them. Not saying that they're massively underrated or nothing. They're just kind of expected to have a couple teams left in the Sweet 16. The Pac-12, maybe slightly underrated again. Just depends upon what Arizona and UCLA do, Kyle. I can't hear you right now. Maybe it's
Oh,
there you go.
I muted myself. My bad on that, guys. But what about the Mountain West too, Kiev? I mean, gosh, the Mountain West every single year. I think they're like 18-40 against the spread in their last 58 now. And I gotta tell you, San Diego State, what a collapse by them. They were just so far ahead. The whole game kind of then left Creighton in the game. Then Creighton with a nice showing to keep it close there against Kansas. But in general, Boise with a quick out. The Mountain West, Colorado State as a 6th seed going out right away. Just a terrible showing by them.
Yeah, terrible. But you also threw out that huge trend last week about the Mountain West when we did this show on Wednesday about how terrible they are in the tournament. And I agreed with you. And I said their officiating is done differently out there. I said that, they allow teams to play defense and they're not going to always allow that. And I'm not going to blame that completely on their claps. But I faded the Mountain West except for Boise, and I should have faded them all. I went 3-1 the Mountain West. I just thought that when Boise got the 3.5, that the coaching there with Leon Rice should have been a little bit better than Penny Hardaway. But at the same time, they came back in that game and they almost gave Memphis a run at the very end. They just got too much of a hole, and I'm glad that I faded the other teams in the Mountain West. Now, I was sweating San Diego State a little bit because San Diego State was shooting out of their minds. You saw that first half, San Diego State doesn't hit shots like that normally, and so that's why they're in the game. But I was never completely down on Creighton in that game. I wasn't like marking that as a loss, and thank God it went to overtime. I mean, I think I only got a +2 on Creighton, so it was a sweat for sure, Kyle.
Kiev, I was on the other end of that one. I had San Diego State -2. And as you know, I was sick last Thursday, and I didn't even get to see the games yesterday or Thursday afternoon. First game I saw was San Diego State that night. I got to tell you, I felt sicker at the end of that game than I did at the beginning. Having said that, though, 7-2 so far in the NCAA tournament for me. So that was one of the 2 losses. I've had really big total success. And Kiev, let's talk about a couple trends that kind of stand out here. The Sweet 16. I was telling you about this one. This is an interesting one. The Sweet 16 unders. When a team is favored by 7.5 points or more, the under is 21, 8-2. And I know somebody's going to say, well, that's a small sample size. Look, there's only so many games in the Sweet 16. This is not the regular season. We're not going to have massive sample sizes. But 21, 8-2, I think is something to pay attention to.
Yes, that is absolutely great call on that one. And I believe there's 2 or 3 games that has 7.5 or higher. And I believe you said that was the number. Gonzaga here, Arkansas, large total 154.5. Purdue versus St. Peters, a smaller total at 133.5. And then we're still at 7.5 here on Providence, Kansas. And I can't imagine it getting much lower than that. We're looking at 141.5, Kyle. So those are the trends that look like kind of lines up with the numbers that line up with your trend.
I think it's a interesting trend that does have several examples of it this week. Kiev, I'm going to share my screen and show another trend here. I want to get your opinion and see if this one has any validity long term. This is a underdog. We're looking at underdogs in the NCAA tournament that have allowed less than 60 points the previous game. They're 135 and 88 against the spread. This goes back to 2009, I believe it is. Yes. So excluding seasons up to that point, because from that point on, this trend is 135 and 88, which is 60.5%. Do you think this is one of those that's statistical noise, or do you think that this is kind of an interesting trend that could have future predictive ability as well?
Well, if you look at what Iowa State did in their games, it's just another comparison here. This is a team that didn't play well and won, right? And so it tells you when you play a team that's poised and confident, that team should blow these underdogs away, So I think it is one that you can stick by here. Just look at it this way. When teams get into the tournament, they lock up, right? They can't shoot. They're just nervous. They're very nervous, and maybe they shoot bad because they're not a championship type team. Wisconsin, their best players were bad. Just other examples. There's plenty of teams that should have won that didn't, and a bad team beats them. Well, that bad team is a bad team for a reason. So think about some of those teams, and I do think that there is something to this trend.
Yeah, and I shared the screen here so you can see which games do meet this. The plays here would be Houston, Arkansas, Providence, and Iowa State if you were playing this straight. And I do want to point out neither Kiev or I would bet something just solely on a trend like this, but it's part of the handicap. It's something that you want to consider. So the under with a bigger spread, and then taking an underdog that's a good defense or that's given up less points, in the last game has been a good one long term. I tend to prefer the under trend over this one. Having said that, this one has pretty good long term success, so we'll see if it can continue. But let's look at, as we get into some of the games here, Kiev. Let's break down these as far as tonight's games first in the Sweet 16, and then we'll get to Friday night's games. Let's start off with Arkansas and Gonzaga. Kiev on this one. Gonzaga the favorite by 9.5 or so here on this one, I think. And as we look at this game, this is an interesting game to me, because I'll start off by saying, I'll ask you this question. Do you think Arkansas is a tougher matchup for Gonzaga, or do you think Memphis was a tougher matchup for Gonzaga?
That's a great question, because, I mean, Memphis had the talent for sure. And I think the talent really showed itself in the tournament in flashes, but also the bad coaching showed for Memphis. So I think Musselman's a better coach than Hardaway, but I think that Arkansas, as good as Note and a couple of the guys are on this team, they're still not quite as good as Memphis. So, I mean, you're looking at the Memphis was about a 10.5, 11-point dog, and you have Arkansas as about a 9.5-point dog. So they're saying Memphis was a slightly worse team, which lines up with the efficiency sites like Ken Pom and stuff like that. I mean, if we want to break down the matchup, we can probably just get into that. I think that Arkansas itself doesn't have a lot of matchup advantages here. And I'll share my screen if I can try to add it to the stream here. Here we are. So this is the Haslametrics behind it. You don't see anything really Arkansas does good here on the left, especially when it comes to three-point shooting advantage. It looks like Gonzaga's got a great three-point shooting defense against Arkansas. I mean, you look at near proximity, those are the most important I look at. Gonzaga massive on defense, and you look, it's kind of like the opposite with Gonzaga on offense. These are massive matchup advantages. Makes you almost want to lay the points with Gonzaga, and this is what takes me off taking Arkansas as a full dog. One thing that I found interesting for Arkansas is they get to the free throw line a lot. Okay, free throw attempts are high. So that really concerns me. If they can get Chet Holmgren or Timmy in some first half foul trouble, you might see an early exit for one of those guys. And to be honest with you, those guys did not start the last two games well, Kyle. I mean, I think that that was the reason that the first halves were so good with the Georgia State game as well as the Memphis game. And we were on the Memphis first half. I think Arkansas is going to come out firing. They're going to come in as a 9.5-point dog, and they're going to feel it, right? So that's going to help motivate them. And I think that Musselman plays better as a dog. So I trust Arkansas a lot more in the first half itself. I think Arkansas could get to the line. Chet Holmgren's starting a little bit slow. I'm going to play them, and I found them at plus 5.5, and you might wait this out and even, get that better. So that's what I'm going to go with this game.
Okay, so interesting. I think Arkansas, I would argue, is probably not quite as tough of a matchup for Gonzaga as Memphis. Memphis's pressure style. Memphis has tons of talent too. They didn't play very well at the beginning of the season, but Memphis was playing really well here late. Penny Hardaway, maybe not the best of coaches, especially in game, and Arkansas probably has a better coach in Eric Musselman. Having said that, the thing that concerns me about Arkansas is their offense is so inconsistent. Their offense has had some really ugly outputs. 64 points on the neutral court against Texas A&M in the SEC tournament. 53 last game against New Mexico State. They're going to have to score here against Gonzaga. We know that. I kind of agree. If you like Arkansas, I would take first half. And maybe if Arkansas is running good here in the first half, we might get a good shot to take Gonzaga live, because I do think Gonzaga wins this game. Maybe you get a better number than the 9.5 that's out there. I lean Gonzaga ATS here for the full game. Also like Arkansas team total under 73 a bit here in this one. This is a Arkansas team, like I said, on offense that they are really relying on getting to the line. The problem I have with that is Gonzaga really hasn't fouled very much throughout the course of the season. Now, we'll see what officials show up. Kiev, there's been some highly questionable officiating in this tournament. I mean, It's probably right behind St. Peter's as the story of the tournament. Just some terrible officiating.
Yeah.
And I usually like to not complain about it too much, but some very questionable officiating. Arkansas, if they don't get those calls, is probably in trouble in this game because they don't shoot it well from three, 30.5%. Holmgren's length probably really bothers them. So if there's one guy they want to get in foul trouble, it's probably Holmgren. And I think we have to say, Timmy last game coming out of halftime, I mean, just an absolute beast. Just took over that game against Memphis. I haven't seen a performance that good in quite a while as far as just dragging his team across the finish line. Really impressive stuff from him. This is a Gonzaga team that kind of got a wake-up call last game. I don't think they will lose this game. I mean, obviously anything can happen at the NCAA tournament, but I like Gonzaga a bit here, -9.5. Also kind of like Arkansas team total under in this one.
So team total, I mean, this one does buck the trend, or not buck the trend. It goes with your trend, is what I'm trying to say. So over 7.5 points, total's doing really well in the Sweet 16. Spreads over 7.5 or over.
Yeah, and let's be honest, 155 as the total is a pretty high total. I mean, this is still a neutral court. They're playing early in San Francisco. This is a tip-off at like 4 p.m. local time. I would imagine the place won't be full by any means at that time. Probably people in traffic trying to get to the game. Usually the number one seed would get the later game, but we have Coach K here and Duke, so they get the late game. But I'm looking forward to Arkansas Gonzaga. It should be a good game. Let's move on as we look toward the 7:29 Eastern tip-off between Michigan and Villanova. Kiev, I'm going to let you start off on this one. What are your thoughts here? Villanova favored by 5 or 5.5, total of about 134.5 or 135.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan is a 5-point dog now, looking at DraftKings here in 135.5. So, I mean, my thoughts on I made a play on this, but the number's gone. I like Nova here, and at 5, I don't like it as much. I mean, I got to tell you, Michigan was fortunate, I think, to advance the way they did. I think they caught a Tennessee team, Kyle, that you have to ask yourself, was this more about Rick Barnes being bad in the tournament, or was it like Michigan's all of a sudden a top 15, top 10 team? I'm going to think it was maybe a little bit of both, that Michigan got better, but Michigan's still Michigan, and Nova is got everything. They have everything to be a championship team this year. They have the coach in Jay Wright. They have Gillespie. They have a lot of talent. They got height. They got free 3-point. And what I like the most about Villanova, Kyle, is that they have the free throws. They're number one in free throw percentage. That makes me feel great about laying the points with them. They're up by 4 points here. We go into Fall City with 30 seconds left. They're hitting their free throws, and they help cover the 4.5, 5 points, whatever you have to lay, right? So I like how Nova just kind of capitalizes on teams' defensive weaknesses. And there is some weakness, especially with the guard play for Michigan. Now, I will say Michigan has gotten better, but Nova is just got a very good near proximity defense, and the Wolverines don't shoot a lot of threes. So I don't see where they're going to get a lot of margin here. I like Nova.
I can't disagree with you there, Kiev. And I will say we have several people watching live. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We'll certainly try to get to those as well. Apologize here. My voice is I'm having a little bit of trouble with my voice here today. So if it goes out too much, I'll have Kiev take over a little bit more. But sorry about that. But we'll see if I can get this back together. I have plenty of thoughts. I've talked a lot this week, Kiev, and we've had the cold going around here, and
yeah, I'll jump in every line.
So picked a bad time here to mess up on me. I'd been talking fine, but anyways, well, as I look at this game, Michigan and Villanova, Hunter Dickinson's a tough matchup for anybody. Nova will probably have a tough time stopping him, but I think Michigan's going to have serious problems stopping Villanova in this game. Villanova's offense is really good. I actually don't really think Ohio State played that bad in the game against Villanova. The Buckeyes played better than they had been. It just wasn't good enough against Villanova. I think Jay Wright's an exceptional coach. I mean, I like Villanova as a team because I like Jay Wright quite a bit. And the thing about Villanova, they run a lot of pick and roll offense, Michigan 229th in pick and roll defense. I mean, I really don't understand how you can be so bad against those pick and roll ball screens. You really should be able to defend those pretty well. Michigan has been so bad at those throughout the course of the season. I think that's a real problem. Also, Villanova posts up their guards a lot. We saw them do that against Ohio State and have success. Gillespie, some of the other guys as well, bigger than your average guards, and they do a good job posting up. It makes for some interesting, tough matchups. I don't think Michigan's guards are very good on defense, so Villanova likely scores quite a few here. I kind of lean to the over in this one, Kiev, and maybe Villanova team total over being a decent look as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like the Nova team total angle here. I think they get their points, and Michigan can definitely speed it up at times.
Yeah, I mean, the tempo doesn't have to necessarily be extremely fast in this game for it to get over, because I think both offenses are good enough that they have edges. Villanova, like you said, the near proximity edges for both teams. Villanova is so consistent, and they also don't turn it over. Two things that we like a lot. Villanova doesn't turn the basketball over, and they shoot free throws extremely well. I mean, you start with those two things in the NCAA tournament, that's a pretty good team just from that. So Villanova, very good at both of those things. So let's go on here to Texas Tech and Duke. Coach K, will it be his last game? Can he get to 100 NCAA tournament wins, Kiev? I mean, I don't think either one of us are massive fans of Coach K or Duke. I do respect him. I mean, he's done a great job with the program. Obviously, a very good coach. This is a Duke team that is not the best Duke team that we've seen, but they're clearly very good. Texas Tech's defense versus Duke's offense here. I'll start out with some of my thoughts here. Texas Tech, to me, is a better team than Duke is. My concern here is Texas Tech's away from home rating. Kiev, I don't know if you have Haslametrics there that you can share on this game. There we go. And he pops it up right away. This Haslametrics number of 354th, I believe it was, on away from home rating, 353rd. Just really concerning for me for Texas Tech. You know, how are they going to play away from home? Now, having said that, in momentum, they've played much better recently than has Duke. Duke has really not played very well of late. This is Paolo Banchero, the star for Duke. Is he going to have a big game? I do think Mark Williams might be the biggest key to this game for Duke. He's a good shot blocker. Texas Tech attacks the basket with reckless abandon. I mean, they are not going to shoot threes. They're going to come in the paint. How does Duke do against that? I think that's the key in this. Duke is terrible in transition defense, Kiev. They're 211th in transition defense according to shot quality. So the question is, can Texas Tech do anything about that? Because Texas Tech usually doesn't run too much. I think they would be wise to run. In fact, their transition offense so far this year has been very good. They just haven't done it too much. So we'll see if they take advantage of that. Texas Tech's defense, #1 in the half court. They're a good defense in general. So I don't have any strong opinions on this game, Kiev. I don't know if you have anything. I really don't want to bet this game. I just want to watch it and see what happens here. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that, I mean, there's just so many good things to look at here in Haslametrics. You do see that transition offense and defense number here kind of showing its face here with potential quick points. Texas Tech does rank high, 15th, and Duke's defense isn't that good. You know, they kind of give it up and let the other team get to the layup. On the other side of things, Duke's terrible in transition here. You know, they're not scoring fast. They're not getting steals and scoring. They're not that built that way. That's, you know, one thing that Texas Tech has. But what I will say about Duke is that I think they're a matchup problem in general for Texas Tech because they have the height to keep up with Texas Tech. I mean, I think Texas Tech got to beat up a lot of teams in the Big 12, and they used to be a taller conference. They're, you know, I would say they're still pretty tall, but Duke's got some serious athletes and some serious height, and they're going to create matchup problems for Texas Tech. And if Texas Tech is not hitting the three-pointer, then I think they could be in a little bit of trouble here. As you can see, Texas ranks 89th in three-point shooting. Duke ranks 37th. I think that's something to look at. You know, not a ton of matchup advantages otherwise, but I do say that Duke can hit a few mid-range shots, ranking 26th in the league in mid-range shots. And normally I hate mid-range shots, but when there's nothing else that the board gives you, it's something I look at. But yeah, you brought up the most important thing here, Kyle, the intangibles, the what do you guys do away from home? Ranking 353rd away from home showed its ugly face against Notre Dame, right? And if you look at Duke, they've been fantastic away from home, ranking 29th. I want to bring up a few things about Duke here. One thing that Duke has done well is they have stepped up in neutral courts against the best of the best. They beat Kentucky super early in the season, and they beat Gonzaga on a neutral court. I think that kind of, let's just say it's an experience point. I know it's a young team. They only average 19 years old, but I think that's huge when it comes into another neutral court coming into this situation. So we had a question from Chris, what's Texas Tech on neutral courts? So neutral courts means the away from home stat means neutral or away, right? So it puts them both together. But Texas Tech did beat Tennessee on a neutral court. You can say what you want about Tennessee; they're not good. They're not good away from home either. Then Incarnate Ward. I think do we really have to look at that one? And then Texas Tech had a common opponent against Gonzaga. They lost 69-55 on this neutral court. Obviously, the only other times they got the neutral court was the Big 12 Conference Championship, right? They stuck it to Iowa State, almost lost to Oklahoma. I don't know how the heck that happened. And then they obviously lost to Kansas on the neutral court by 9 points. I hate to say it, and I'm not a Duke fan, but the intangibles tell me that Duke's going to win this game. And if you want to even say that the officials have been bad, they could be bad for this game. It is Coach K's last dance, and the team knows it. I think Duke's the play.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. I kind of think that Texas Tech is in general a better team, but it might not be a great matchup for them. I didn't expect to have Kiev talking positively about Duke here. You should have worn your Duke hat. No, I'm just kidding.
I would never do something like that.
No, I know. But nonetheless, this is a really exciting game. We're really looking forward to that one. I think I'll be rooting for Texas Tech. I know I'll be rooting for Texas Tech. Let's be honest. But exciting game. Coach K going for his 100th NCAA tournament win, guys. That is really impressive. I mean, you think about how many wins you get to a national championship. It'd be 6 unless you're in the first 4. And then how many times he's had to run through the NCAA tournament. Really impressive. It's going to be hard for somebody else to match that number of wins. So Kiev looking toward Duke in that one. I'm going to pass on that game in general.
Maybe he'll unretire and come back for Ohio State. So then I can really, really hate on Ohio State, right?
Oh, man. That'd be terrible. I don't.
If he did, probably it'd be terrible.
And some people would be excited as Ohio State fans, but I wouldn't be very excited. That's for sure. It won't happen there, so let's not worry about that. Let's talk Houston and Arizona. Kiev, this is a really interesting matchup. I'm looking forward to this game about as much as any of them tonight. And I have to say, I mean, these are some really damn good games here tonight in the NCAA tournament. You say which is the best game tonight? Really, all of them are so good. Houston and Arizona, the matchup here really interests me a lot because I think Kiev, if we played this game about maybe 3 weeks ago, the line probably would have been on a neutral Arizona -3.5, Arizona -4, something like that. Houston really hadn't beaten anybody very good, but they're a very good team that's well coached. Sampson's one of the best coaches in the country, I would say. I'll start on this one. As I look at this game, Arizona has something that concerns me quite a bit in this game. They're 355th in the country in experience. This is the type of game where experience really matters a lot. Houston's a really well-coached team, and they are experienced. Arizona has more talent than does Houston, but it's not just about talent. This is going to be a complete pace war. Kiev, Arizona wants to run all the time. Houston's going to try to slow this game down a bit. Who controls the pace is going to be pretty key. Both teams tremendous on the offensive glass. According to shot quality, they're number 1 and number 2 in the country in offensive rebounding. And honestly, neither team's very good at defensive rebounding. So if you have the under, you're going to be concerned when you keep seeing, volleyball up there where they just, get 3 or 4 shots and just knock it off the backboard, get another try, get fouled. I think that will be happening. I wanted to bet the under, but I can't bet the under based on that because this is a high total for a Houston game. Houston didn't beat anybody in the regular season, like I said, but they are 25-9 against the spread in their last 34 neutral site games. That includes a lot of tournament success. You have to give them credit for that. Arizona 4-11 against the spread in their last 15 neutral site games. I don't put too much stock into trends alone, but it is interesting. Kiev, people are really, really high on Houston now. I'm curious to see your take on this game because I hear people saying Houston's going to win it. Houston is, flying under the radar. Maybe Illinois just sucked. Maybe Illinois was just not really that good. Illinois, very fortunate to beat Chattanooga in that first game. I think Illinois underachieved badly this season with the talent that they have. But I think maybe Houston might be getting a little bit too much hype. At the same time, I don't really trust this young Arizona team that honestly probably should have lost to TCU. So what are your thoughts on this one, Kiev?
Well, I got to tell you, I think Houston's record is a little bit fraudulent. And I'll tell you, being number 2 on KenPom is a shocker how they move completely up like that. And that's so unfair for this South bracket. It's like Arizona's the 1 seed and they're not even, now they're below Houston. What is going on here? And Houston's sitting there as a 5 seed in the South. So that was kind of a kick in the pants to Arizona to have to face Houston. But what I will say is I still think that Houston is very vulnerable here. We have to remember that Houston was a lot better of a team in December, but when they had Marcus Sasser, right? They had some key guys that got injured. Tremont Mark, like starters, and they had to replace them. Now, thank God that Houston had such a great bench. And they still ended up dominating the American Athletic Conference. But guess what? It's still the American Athletic Conference. Which Houston are we going to get? Are we going to get the one that lost to Memphis by 15 points at the last game of the season? Or actually, they lost them both times. Or are we going to get the one that beat Memphis? I'll tell you this. Illinois was massively overrated. They didn't have Dosunmu from last year, and their forwards are terrible. Everybody after Coffee Coburn is terrible. I thought the only team that played almost as bad as Wisconsin in the tournament, especially the round of 32, was Illinois.
Yeah.
Houston didn't really impress me, and they should have pulled away many times against Illinois. Illinois couldn't hit anything. And when Houston did play UAB, they beat them by 14 points, but UAB's best player went 1 for 10 from 3. I mean, when you do that, you're kind of just giving them the game. I think Houston's a little bit fraudulent. I am concerned about the experience, though, Kyle. That's a great point. Arizona coming in, brand new coach and Tommy Lloyd, young kids, but I also think it kind of brings them together. They seem to coach, the recruiter, Sean Miller, get fired. They're like, you know what, let's stick together anyway. We were planning to do this. Let's just see what Tommy Lloyd does. Tommy Lloyd, the way he runs his offense, probably taught by the best college coach or second. It depends where you put Jay Wright or Mark Few. Mark Few did great for Tommy Lloyd's education. Arizona's a fast team. There's going to be a lot of offensive rebounds. That's why I don't like the under. This is one I would definitely lean to the over. But now that Kirk Kreese is back, he got his feet wet a little bit against TCU. They got hurt in the rebound battle. Arizona's just too tall. They're too fast. And I think they could really jump Houston. I like the Wildcats here. And they probably play with a little bit of chip on the shoulder, being that Houston is in Texas.
Kirk Kreese played really poorly in that game against TCU. We got to hope, if you're rooting for Arizona in this one, that Kreese doesn't do his Russell Westbrook impressions of, just jacking it up there constantly. Give a quick NBA reference. But, Kreese also turns it over quite a bit. No Sasser hurts quite a bit for Houston. The other thing that people are forgetting is Houston last year had Grimes. Quentin Grimes was a good player as well. He really was a go-to guy for them. And without him, I think their upside is less than what it was last year. We know they got to the Final Four last year. I don't think this Houston team is better than last year's team. And right now, KenPom and a lot of the other analytics teams are saying they are. So we'll see if it's true, but I think Kiev and I think that they're a bit overvalued there. So Kiev, let's move on to Friday if you're ready. Then Friday night we've got 4 games, not as good a games as Thursday night, I would say. Having said that, it's still the NCAA tournament, and there's going to be some great games. We'll start with St. Peters and Purdue here on this one, the early game. St. Peters has been the story of the tournament. I'll start on this one. I like Purdue team total over in this one, Kiev. I think St. Peters has had a really nice run. But if you look at St. Peters, who do they put on the floor? They put guys who are 6'7", 6'8" as their big guys. I mean, how are they going to guard Zach Edey and Travion Williams? And this is going to be quite the adventure. St. Peter's a good defense. They play well. They play very hard. But, it's one thing to be a good defense, and then you see a 7'4" guy out there, and you just start hacking like crazy, and you get offensive rebounds. Purdue got 46 free throws against Texas. I know there was a lot of talk about that, saying, terrible officiating. To be honest, I mean, Texas was fouling a lot. I mean, they were fouling a lot in that game. Maybe Purdue should have had a few more fouls called on them to even it up a bit. I think it was like 46-12 or something on free throws. But I do think Texas fouled a lot in that game. And if you look at St. Peter's, they're bottom 10 in the country at defending without fouling. That's not good at all against this Purdue team, especially when you're so short. I think Purdue can score here. The question is, how many will St. Peter's score? I don't want to bet the game over because I'm a bit worried that St. Peter's luck on their shooting is going to drop off. I can't remember the name of the guy offhand. I'm gonna as I'm talking. What is the Doug Edert? Edert, the guy that's been burying all the shots for St. Peter's.
Mustache guy?
What's that?
Is he the one with the mustache?
Yeah, the mustache guy that got the NIL deal with, like, was it B-dubs or something like that, BW3s, and he got an NIL deal, which is hilarious because, I mean, who knew who Doug Edert was before, this week? And honestly, once they lose, probably nobody will remember him too much either. But I love St. Peter's, fun team. Obviously, I like Purdue as a Big Ten guy, but Purdue minus 12.5. I hate laying this many points, Kiev. I would lean that way, but I like Purdue team total over in this one. I think Purdue will get their points. I'm not sure how many points St. Peter's will score. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think that the books set it at 12.5 because they expected a lot of money coming in. If you look at the efficiency sites, Kyle, it's 10. It's 10 on KenPom. It's 10 on Haslametrics, I believe. And Bart Torvik, I think, is pretty close to that as well. So what's it doing at 12.5? Well, they expect the little guy to go down, and there is a massive matchup advantage. And you nailed it. You said the height. I don't know how they're going to guard Zach Edey down there. I think they're going to have to try to swipe the ball before he lifts it up. And they kind of did that a little bit against Kentucky and a little bit against Murray State. Now, what I will say is that Murray State came in as a very good team, and when they beat Murray State, I was on St. Peter's because I didn't think it would be should be an 8-point favorite. A lot of people had Murray State for Survivor, something I warned about, and Murray State ended up losing anyway. Unfortunately, I was stupid and took Tennessee as my Survivor. So there you go. It's like you believe in Rick Barnes. It's like, what am I doing here? But I couldn't change it, and both of them lost here. The most common one, and when I was trying to just put a fade on Michigan. But going back to this game. Purdue should destroy this team, but I wonder if the St. Peter's are going to try to draw some charging fouls against the big guy. I mean, if it was me, unfortunately, I don't love this part of the game of basketball. I'd probably be flopping a little bit by Travion Williams and Zach Edey, try to get them in some foul trouble. I think the other thing is Jaden Ivey. I think he's possibly the best player in college basketball. I really believe that. I think he's a number 1, 2, or 3 draft pick. I've been saying it all year. A lot of people are saying Davis. I was saying Ivy. That guy's got NBA all over him. He's got skills. I don't like Purdue 14-20 against the spread as a favorite, Kyle. That's something I can't lay here. Peacocks are 5th in momentum right now. I think the spread should be lower. I think it should be probably around 9.5. Am I excited to bet on a St. Peter's team that did what they did? Not really. But at the same time, Purdue doesn't capitalize, and they tend to get lazy. So I'm just going to give you a lean to St. Peter's with the large spread here, just thinking it's too big. Fair enough?
Yeah, fair enough. I think.
I hear you. Well, Kyle might have lost momentum here. He might have to refresh his screen a little bit. So we see him just fine. But I'm going to move right on to the next game since Kyle can't see right now. He'll probably pop back in when he has a chance. Providence versus Kansas. And Kansas is laying 7.5 points here. The total of this game is 141.5. Providence is another team that's kind of like people might call a public dog, but what's Kansas is the question. Should Kansas be laying a little bit higher of a mark than 7.5? I don't know about that. I think Providence is the luckiest team, and it shows that. But at the same time, they kind of build themselves into that. They're like a Wisconsin in the way that they don't do great against the worst teams, but they kind of step up against the better teams. But at least it's showing here in the NCAA tournament, the most important place. They took care of business both times. I'm 2-0 on Providence bets so far. I don't like the way that Kansas played a very injured Creighton team, and I give Doug McDermott a ton of respect for what he did in hanging with Kansas. But Kansas is going to have all the matchup advantages here. I think both teams are going to hit some threes. I make the spread 6. I don't make it 7.5. I'm going to give you a lean on Providence. Kyle, you back?
I am, yeah. A bad time for my computer to mess up there. I was muted and then couldn't get back to unmute myself, Kiev. So thanks for taking over there for a minute. This game's a really interesting handicap, Kiev. I want to show. I'm going to share my screen if I can. Hopefully, I won't have any other issues. This is Providence. So we're looking at Providence on shot quality. This is a Providence team that is 27-5. And you see, I highlight that shot quality believes they should be 18-14. I mean, that's just a massive difference. The luckiest team in the country in many different metrics. You see, all the yellow games are games where they won and should have lost according to shot quality. So they're just across the board. I mean, Kiev, it's pretty crazy that they won 79-51 against Richmond. The shot quality final was 66-63 Richmond.
A loss.
I think Richmond was what? I don't remember their shooting percentage, but it was hideous. It was terrible. They couldn't even make a free throw in that game. Kiev, I don't know what to do with this game because I really don't want to take Providence. I still think this team is very fortunate. And I'm going to say that this is one of those trendy underdogs that we've talked about in the past. Everybody's betting on Providence here. A lot of the spread bets, the money is on Providence. And spread bets of 0 to 49% laying 10 points or less. This is one we've talked about before. So this would fit Kansas, laying the points with Kansas in the NCAA tournament, 144 and 116. That's 55.4% going back to 2006. So this would be an angle that would be back in Kansas. Having said that, Kiev, 7.5 points is quite a few points for a Kansas team that I don't think Kansas is really that good either. So I'm having a hard time with this game because I don't want to bet Providence, and I know I'm not going to bet Providence. I just can't decide if I will end up laying the points here with Kansas or not because I'm not sure Kansas is really that good either. Now, this one does fit the under angle again, Kiev, where the under could come into play. Under 142 on some of the books here. I do lean under. I think Providence wants to slow this game, make it a half-court game. You have any thought on the total on this one?
Yes, let me share my screen real quick. That's a good call, and I don't mind looking at this under because you look at some of these matchups. What's the most important to me is 3-point percentage and the near proximity. Well, near 3-point percentage, you have Providence that ranks 29th in adjusted 3-point percentage, and then Kansas's defense ranks 27th. So it sounds like that they could be shut down there. But on the flip side of it, Kansas, the better 3-point shooting team, ranking 11th, but Providence defense around the perimeter ranks 29th. Maybe some of that's the luck that we talk about, that their teams are just not hitting some threes, but that makes me look towards the under. Now I look for near proximity. Kansas with McCormick can score near proximity, ranking 14th, but Providence stopping teams to 20 seconds. I think that's more about just playing hard defense and luck under Ed Cooley. I like Cooley as a coach. I think he's done a fantastic job. Then obviously Providence does not have a good near proximity game. And Kansas is going to shut that down anyway. So the under really fits this trend at 141.5. I'm going to give you a stronger lean to the under, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I think the under is a pretty decent look here, and that would probably be my favorite play in this one. Full disclosure, I haven't bet anything for Friday yet, so I'm kind of talking my way through these games. I do like the Purdue team total over, and I will bet that one personally. We'll see as far as full game bets. So Providence, Kansas should be an interesting one. I do agree. Cooley's a really good coach, and that's at least part of why they've won so many close games. So they're very well coached, certainly.
Yeah.
Having said that, still, I mean, they're not an elite team to have that kind of record. So we'll see what happens. We move on. 9:39 Friday night, the Tar Heels of North Carolina against the UCLA Bruins. This is a fantastic matchup. This is the best game of Friday night, in my opinion. We look through this game and you say, okay, North Carolina off that win, the North Carolina Baylor game, Kiev, we probably should have said something about that game at the beginning too. What an insane game. I mean, I was playing a board game with the family while I was watching that game, and I ended up saying, hey, hold on a second. We got to stop this game so I can focus solely on the basketball game, because what an insane comeback by Baylor. There were some highly questionable calls in that game for sure. And then, what a comeback, and then it goes to overtime. First, Kiev, what do you think of that contest? I mean, Baylor, certainly you got to give them credit for fighting back. Then the ejection of Brady Manick was really a key of that game. What does it make you think of North Carolina, and what was your takeaway from that game?
Well, it's kind of, I've seen it before. It was the worst officiating job since the 2015 NCAA championship game. They wanted Baylor back in the game. They did. They were fouling them every time, not getting caught. They were like grabbing the arms. They were 5 seconds out was more like 3 seconds for North Carolina. They take the guy out of the game. I mean, they just did everything they could to get Baylor back in this game, and you wonder what the heck's going on. Was this because they're subconsciously biased to make a close game for the networks? I don't know. I'm not a person that believes that games are predeterminedly fixed, but this was one of the worst officiating jobs I've ever seen in my life, and they should give the state of North Carolina a massive apology for doing that. And they should probably never ref another basketball game again, in my opinion. But in saying that, there was still some inconsistency there with North Carolina, Kyle, that we do have to point out. They did do pretty bad on the free throws. They should have shot 3 free throws better, even though the momentum, quote unquote, was going against them. And they shouldn't have never got to overtime. But a lot of times people bet the team that came back in overtime, well, that was their time to kind of take the breather, and then North Carolina turned it on again. They were live minus 250. Baylor was to win this plus 200 on North Carolina. But I mean, if you're holding in North Carolina, you have to rip that thing up. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that live bet, this game too. And I think that the officiating did a disservice to that. But in general, that was just another farce. That and the Iowa-Richmond game are the ones that stick out to me.
Yeah, that was, I agree. There were some really crazy ones. Even the Ohio State Loyola game was poorly officiated, and that was just such an ugly game. Mm-hmm. I want to show, I'm going to try to share screen here. Hopefully we don't have issues again as I try to share this. But I'm going to share screen here to another angle, Kiev. This is a Sweet 16 angle. I wanted to bring this one up while we were on this game. This is in the round of the Sweet 16, backing a team that has a lower ATS percentage cover than the other team. So in this case, the opposing team is 55 to 75% ATS. The team you're wanting to back is 34% to under 55%. Here's what I've put in. And this one fits UCLA, actually. So you would be backing UCLA if you bet this. North Carolina's been a spread coverer here of late. They've been covering a lot of numbers. Baycott's a really good inside player. You see the other ones that would fit this as well, too, on this angle. So just a little bit of a bonus thought on that one. I don't think I can bet aside on this one, Kiev. I really don't. I think this is one where if I look at this game, I think North Carolina offensively has been very good. They're good 3-point shooters. You're not used to seeing them be very good at threes. Usually offensive rebounds is the way they do it. And then on the other side, UCLA does not turn the ball over. Jaquez has been injured. We should certainly bring up that Jaime Jaquez, him and Juzang are the two key players for UCLA, certainly. If Jaquez isn't 100%, it hurts them quite a bit. As far as what I would think on this game, if I had to bet something here, I would bet the over. I think this game's a little bit lower than it should be. My number is higher than this. Having said that, I don't get excited to bet overs on neutral courts in the Sweet 16. So what are your thoughts here on this one, Kiev?
Well, UCLA has been lights out so far. And they didn't have to do a lot against St. Mary's. I thought that St. Mary's was just another one of those teams that, had an explosive game against Indiana, right? And then all of a sudden they run into, UCLA and they can't hit the broadside of a barn. It's just reminding me of the Wisconsin game. It's just like they're just another team that's making UCLA look a little bit better than they are. Now, I am concerned about Jaquez's injury. I saw the injury. He limped off pretty hard. I don't think he even went back into that game. I don't think he was needed. But he's been injured all year. So you wonder if it's just that aggravated, re-rolled his ankle type thing, or if it was really something significant. But it definitely takes me off wanting to back them. I actually lean North Carolina here. I think North Carolina is just part of the ACC that's been underrated all year. Now I think it's just time for them to step up. Hubert Davis kind of has them going. My issues about North Carolina are pretty obvious, though. They don't get any steals. They're a good defensive rebounding team. They could do a little bit better offensive rebounding, and I don't like how they guard the three. And that makes me a little worried that UCLA is going to shoot threes. But you can use that against the total in this game. If you're looking at the, I'm just going to have to add this to stream the Ken Palm here. North Carolina, horrible at guarding the three, ranking 208, but they can hit some threes here. And then you look at UCLA, they're decent 3-point shooting, but they're not that great inside. So they're going to pop a decent amount of threes. It doesn't show that their attempts are a lot, but that's where North Carolina gets beat is, teams that actually can shoot 3-pointers. So I like the over kind of, and I didn't bet it yet because I'm hoping that there's a contrarian side here, but just looking at the near proximity, I think that both teams are going to be able to score a little bit here. And I actually think that, UCLA in possession is going to get their points. I like the height of North Carolina. I think the North Carolina's height's going to factor in a little bit here. And so I just see a higher scoring game. I think UCLA is efficient. UCLA plays slow according to Haslmetrics, ranking 308th, but North Carolina ranks 53rd in speed. So 141.5 is a little low. I would probably make this total around 144, maybe 144 and a half, something like that, Kyle. So I'm going to lean over. And unless I get a 3, I would lean North Carolina. If I get a 3, I might play North Carolina, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, 144 is where I had this total at myself. So we agree on that. I think this one's a bit too low. This should be a good game. And if we project forward just for a second here, Kiev, if North Carolina or UCLA wins, they would play Purdue likely, unless Purdue gets upset. So which matchup do you think would be a tougher matchup for Purdue? What do you think that would look like, UCLA or North Carolina versus Purdue? I think either one, it would be a good game, certainly.
Yeah, I would say that against Purdue, I think that, well, that's a tough question because I like the height inside to stop with Bacat there. And, Garcia's out, but, Brady Manick and a couple guys there are pretty tall and should be able to take care of Edey. But I also like UCLA's 3-point shooting. It's a great question. I don't have a good answer for you. I think they both have problems for Purdue. It's just Purdue beating themselves is what I'd be more worried about.
So I guess part of the reason I asked that, I've seen a lot of people saying they like North Carolina to reach the Final Four at this point as a future. So Carolina would have to beat UCLA here and probably Purdue. I think the price is about plus 380, plus 400. What are your thoughts on something like that? Do you think North Carolina has a reasonable shot to win both of those games?
Uh, at that price, I think it's fair. What's a money line rollover at? I think North Carolina has definitely a legit shot just of how bad and inconsistent Purdue has been. But North Carolina's inconsistency almost tells me that they have a shot too. It's like
Right.
if you're kind of like the 8th seed and you're inconsistent, well, maybe you're consistent for 2 games, right? Maybe all of a sudden, it makes you come back a little bit. So I like Purdue in general because they have the height and the NBA star. So I would probably play Purdue against either of these teams personally.
Yeah, I think Purdue is the most likely. The price on North Carolina, not too bad. And like you said, actually being an 8 seed, being inconsistent might be a good thing because their upside is really high. They have a high ceiling. Their downside's pretty low compared to some teams, I would say. But lately they've been playing well. They're coming into this with momentum. So let's look at the last game. Iowa State versus Miami. I'm going to give Kiev credit. He talked up Miami a lot more than anybody else that I was hearing. And frankly, I didn't know if I should trust him on Miami because I didn't think Miami was that good. I figured USC would win the first game. I didn't end up betting it, fortunately. But close game there. Miami gets through that one. And then Miami pulls off the upset against Auburn. So Miami has come into this with 2 good wins, Kiev. And you have Iowa State. Iowa State, certainly the win over Wisconsin is a good win. Wisconsin just played so poorly, like we said. I mean, I don't know. Iowa State with a 5-point win over LSU and what I thought was one of the uglier games I've seen. And then Iowa State plays Wisconsin, and that game was even uglier. So I'm not too excited to watch Iowa State against Miami compared to the other ones that we've talked about, to be honest. This total is pretty low. This total is low because Iowa State has had such low-scoring games in the first 2. Kiev, Miami's defense is really not very good. They're more of an offensive team. This is an extremely low total for a Miami Hurricanes game. I could not bet the under in this game. I think that this is too low to bet the under. I would consider an over. I would kind of hate myself for betting an Iowa State over. And then as far as the side, I don't know. Everybody's betting Miami here. 85% of the bets so far on Miami. Not surprising to me. I believe what did this line open? Like -1, I believe, and it's gone up to -2.5. So we've had some serious line movement. I don't know that it can go up too much. I think 3 would be the top. If it gets to 3, there would be buyback on Iowa State. Iowa State from the Big 12, which has been the best conference in the NCAA tournament, I would say. I don't know. Kiev, do you have a thought on the side in this game? I lean to the over. I hate that I lean to the over in this game, but I don't want to bet the side here. So you have anything?
Well, after seeing how Iowa State beat it up against Wisconsin and Miami's kind of like the St. Peters. Yeah, I understand the total, but they are kind of like the St. Peters. And I should have mentioned that St. Peters is playing in Philadelphia, and they're going to get a lot of fans hating on Purdue that game too. I should have mentioned that. It's something I forgot about. Because nobody roots for Goliath is what John Rothstein likes to say, and I agree with that. Now, in this situation, I did bet Miami against Auburn. I had a personal play against Miami against USC. Obviously, I wish I made it public, but at the same time, you're betting against a coach that maybe with the best tournament record in USC. So that just made it a personal play for me rather than a premium. But I gave it out against Auburn premium because I knew it was too many points, and I knew that the ACC was underrated, and it kind of proved. One thing I look at about Miami is you're right. Their defense hasn't been great. And, it showed its ugly face a couple times, but at the same time, it's improved a little bit. I'm worried about near proximity for Miami if I'm going to worry about anything, because that's where they rank really bad. If you look at Haslametrics here, you have Iowa State near proximity 72, but Miami 303rd in near proximity defense. What the hell? And then I think about it a little bit. It's like, well, they've given up a lot of points to great players in the ACC. First of all, the Duke guys, and they've given up to Keve Alum from from Virginia Tech. They played a lot of tough guys, obviously the North Carolina guys. So, they haven't been really able to hold their own. But I also think that if you look at, the KenPom site, they've done a little bit better here as of recent against some of those bigger teams. Auburn is about a team of forwards, right, Kyle? They're a team of forwards and their guard play. Well, they held Auburn to 61 points here. And same with USC. USC's got a big guy in Isaiah Mobley, 6'10". They has Drew Peterson. They held them too. So it's almost like Miami has kind of snapped out of it. As far as Iowa State, they're massively fortunate. They played the worst offense in the tournament in LSU. I mean, LSU, look at 210th in field goal percentage. That really showed its ugly head. They also turned the ball over a ton. And then let's not forget what Wisconsin's field goal percentage ranked. 277th. I mean, that is just, they didn't have to do much here. What they did was with Gabe Kalsher, they beat Wisconsin and was able to shoot mid-range shots. Well, I don't think they're going to do well against the mid-range when it comes to playing Miami. I think Miami can actually play a little bit of defense here, ranking 81st in the mid-range. So Iowa State's on a good three-point shooting team. I think that Miami is going to get some points near proximity here, ranking 11th against 198th. They're also shooting the three-point better. I just think that Miami's going to possibly roll this team with their speed. And that's what I've noticed with Miami. I think Miami has been playing a lot faster and they've been charging down low. And if you even look this game against Duke here, I mean, first of all, they won 5 out of the last 6 games. But this game against Duke in the tournament, they only lost to Duke by 4 points. They're in this game the whole time. I think Iowa State is the team that's going to get destroyed, in my opinion. I laid it at the -1, and then it went to 1.5, and I had to give it out immediately. I'm like, well, I'm taking this. And then after that, it went to 2.5. So I even like it at 2.5. Try to buy a 2 if you can, because 2 is a much more important number than 2.5. You'd rather win with 2. Comes up like second or third most often in college basketball. Take Miami. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
So I want to show you the shot quality data here for Iowa State in the tournament. Against LSU, they won 59-54. Shot quality believes that game should have been 58.1 to 57.6. So basically a toss-up, a 50-50 game. And then against Wisconsin, 54-49. Wisconsin should have won 63-56. I imagine that doesn't make Kiev feel any better, to be honest. But, if we're being honest, we knew the shot quality was going to think that Wisconsin should have won that game. They missed a lot of shots that they should have made. They were really off in that game. Iowa State, very fortunate to be this point. The other thing that stands out to me, Kiev, is remember in the first game against LSU, Tyrese Hunter making those Steph Curry range threes, just burying everything. Hunter's a 27% three-point shooter for the year. And he was like 7 for 11 from 3. Just not something that's very you wouldn't think he'd be able to keep it up. We'll see if he can replicate that again or not. Probably not. But this is a team in Iowa State that I don't want to back. At the same time, everybody's betting Miami. The trends would tell you take Iowa State to go against the public, but I can't do that here. Trends are just one thing, and I wouldn't bet just based on that solely. We do have a question here. Kevin says, I know Kyle doesn't like parlays, but DraftKings offers odds boost for same game parlays. I took Nova Michigan over 125.5, Nova plus 4.5, and Michigan over 54.5. It was -140 boosted to plus 107. Thoughts on this? Yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't like parlays. I'll stick by that. As far as this one, I can't really decide which one of these is going to end up beating your parlay because I do like the over some. I think Nova will win the game. Michigan over 54.5. I mean, you would certainly think Michigan could get to 54.5, over 54.5. So I don't hate it. -140, I certainly wouldn't have liked it at all. Plus 107. I'd be careful with those odds boosts on doing it too often, but I don't hate this one. Kiev, do you have any thoughts about this?
So over 125.5 when it's 135.5, right? Or it's one.
Yeah, it's 135 135 or 134 and a half.
136. It's 136. So is this like a 10-point teaser almost? I know Nova is minus 5 and 4.5. So I would think that would be a teaser, right? 10-point teaser. Does that make more sense? Maybe it's a different type of function, but being that I'm a little confused by looking at this, I would think that just tell you that a 2-game parlay pays 2.6 to 1. And if it's not paying 2.6 to 1 and it's the exact numbers, then your odds are not really being boosted. So I would look at the end result here of what you're getting from a parlay. And if it's a 3-game parlay, it's 5.9. They really play 5.5 most of the books. I remember in the good old days, Kyle, when they used to pay 6, but it's 5.9 for a 3-game parlay. So keep that in mind. If they're just 2 and they're like 10-point teasers, that is minus 140. A 10-point teaser, I believe, on a 2-game, I think is minus 140 if I remember correctly. And if they're boosting it to plus 107, then that's a good bet. So if I'm seeing this correctly, that's how I have to answer this.
Yeah. So for me, in general, I wouldn't look to do these too often. I don't think it's a good way to make a profit long term. I just can't decide which leg of this is going to end up beating you. Like you said, it does look like a teaser, which teaser odds have gotten worse. The minus 140 used to be lower juice, but this is boosted to plus 107. I don't hate anything about this one, but I would be careful trying to do all the odds boosts. I know those can kind of be gotchas sometimes. So in this case, don't hate it. I think they will score enough points here, but be careful with those.
It's 3 games. 6-point teaser, 2 games is normally minus 110, and it's minus 115 lately because in NFL they've been losing on them so bad. They made minus 115, minus 120. Still a few books that deal minus 110 out there, but it is minus 140 on a 10. So that would be a good deal as long as it's a 2-leg.
Okay, so Kiev, we've covered a lot here today. We went a little bit longer than I expected to, but always a good time. You have any other final thoughts here as we look at this Sweet 16 and head into the Elite 8 this weekend?
Look how the officials are calling the game. If in the first half, if they're swallowing their whistles, this is a underplay possibly. Maybe you can live under it because they're just going to let the teams kind of beat each other up. But if they're calling a lot of fouls, possibly look towards a live over. Now the trick is also if they called too many fouls the first half. These players might get into foul trouble, but there's also going to be a lack of defense in the second half. So I always like the live overs if that's the case. So just kind of think about that when it comes into live betting. But like I always say, Kyle, these games are just like any other summer game that you're betting, any other weekend, any other basketball game. Don't get over invested. Make sure you remember to have fun. Don't make it so your betting is making you sweat. Just have a good time doing it, and always have good bankroll management.
Absolutely. And guys, some great thoughts here from Kiev today. Kiev, let everybody know where they can go to find all of your work.
Thank you, Kyle. At theoddsbreakers.com, we always have some free plays. I put out a free article on a couple of plays that in the West bracket. We have other handicappers putting out brackets as well. Quadrants, we should call them. And we've been assigned a quadrant, and we've been kicking those out. So really happy for that. Went 32-21 against the spread last week in basketball, up 24 units. So really happy about that. But the NIT CBI, and I forgot the name of the other one, those were my best. I think I went like 5 or 6-1 in those because I attacked some angles that Kyle and I like to talk about on Sports Wagering University, and they ended up working out, hit a few unders as well. So, keep in mind, we have Sports Wagering U out for you as well. But if you like my plays for the Sweet 16, it's only a month's worth, $100, and you actually get this and for the next month, and you can always cancel it anytime. So check me out.
Yeah, guys, I would recommend checking out the Odds Breakers. Kiev does great work. He has a lot of great handicappers at that site as well. The thought here, Kansas or Providence, Joey, we did cover this game, so you can play that back and hear our thoughts on this. Kiev had a lean to Providence. I think if I had to bet it, I would bet Kansas here, but I hate laying that many points. We also both leaned to the under in that game pretty strongly. Also, Matthew, thank you for the kind thoughts there. we certainly appreciate that. And we see that there's been quite a few people watching here, Kiev. So always nice to see people enjoying our work. And we've gone pretty long here today, but if you want more of my thoughts, huntersportspicks.com. You can get my free picks newsletter. You can sign up for the premium plays. Like Kiev said, definitely check out sportswageringu.com. A lot of positive things going on there that will help you become a better sports bettor. We're both passionate about that. Two regular guys just trying to help other people beat the books. And I've had a lot of fun with today's show, Kiev. I hope everybody tuned in did as well. Best of luck, Kiev, on all your plays this weekend, and best of luck to everybody who's tuned in as well.
Yeah, thanks, Maddie. Thanks, Kyle. Best of luck to you. We'll be texting each other throughout the weekend. Let's enjoy the madness.
All right, let's do it. See you guys.